The government's climate plan has been ruled unlawful by a high court. We're going to read into this more from Sky News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Sky News with the headline that the government's climate plan has been ruled unlawful by a high court. The government has been beaten in court for the second time by campaigners who said its plans to cut emissions and reach climate targets were coming up short. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share us across social media so others are notified of this video. Again, guys. Again, we're having this conversation about, for the second time now, the government have been hit back by the high courts. The government aren't doing enough to talk climate change. Let's talk a little bit about climate change. We know that the government has not been doing enough. We know that they haven't been doing enough on all sorts of departments when it comes to reducing our emissions. And obviously the idea of them opening up the Rosebank of oil production up north as well, which by the way belongs to Scotland, not the UK, the rest of the UK, and which will do nothing to help improve our energy security anyway as well. It's going to emit more emissions as in itself as well. We obviously know that they were looking to open a coal mine in Cumbria as well. But their argument for that is to help with regards to the British steel industry. And we could have a debate about whether or not it should be right or not that coal mine should be opened or not. And I do think British steel really is an important part of UK's industry, and we should try to protect that as much as we possibly can. But how much are we adapting as nations to adapt to change over from fossil fuels and gases to more renewable energies? What more are we doing to try to renew our way into the climate energy departments? One of my biggest complaints has obviously been, one of mine is obviously with regards to electric cars. Now, I have a family that I know that have electric cars, and I've said this before, I've talked about this before, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'll remind those who don't know. So, having an electric car has a lot of perks, it has a lot of benefits, and especially if you're somebody who has a home that actually has a car charger, where you can charge your car at home, it's really beneficial to you, and you can charge your car at home. Obviously, if you're going on long distance travel, and this is where the negative comes in, it's actually much cheaper, obviously, charging it and whatnot than it is actually fuel with regards to cost of fuel at the moment. The problem we have with, if we want to more people to go with electric cars rather than fuel, is we don't have enough charging stations. And one of the other key problems is that so many of these charging stations that we have around, so many of these charging stations we have up and down the UK, which are kind of all over the place. They're not very, very clear. Is that many of them are run by different private companies. Some charge more, some charge less, some don't charge at all. It varies. It varies for different companies, and some require them to download an app, to create an account, and all this malarkey when they just want to charge their vehicle and get to wherever they're going, sort of thing. So there needs to be a more clearer indicator. There needs to be kind of like, it needs to be all under one banner, electric car chargers, in my opinion, and they need to be very concise and very clear. There needs to be like a gap, places in the UK where there more chargers are going to be in place, and there needs to be incentives by the government in order to encourage businesses that have car parks and whatnot to have them in their places. Maybe like government incentive or some kind of a small grant or something if they install them in their places, that would allow more people to be able to charge their cars in different places and whatnot. So there's lots of on terms of them is I think it's something that needs to be discussed. The other one, of course, is obviously not enough wind and solar panel. Now, obviously, some people have argued that this country can't. We could fill the entire coast of the UK full of wind power farms, and we wouldn't be enough yet to supply our electricity. And I call that absolute total BS. based on reports and analysis that I've looked at. I also think that we should be doing more to make it more incentives need to be done when it comes to having solar panels on every single house in the UK. People will argue, of course, about the weather here, but we still have sunny days, which still contributes to electricity. We want to be less reliant on the bills that we're paying right now. We need to have more insulated homes, for example. We want to be reducing less, and we want to be reducing less and saving more, don't we? Just in terms of a cost of living point of view. So there's that as well. In my opinion, based on the last 14 years, the government have made some strides in 14 years when it comes to renewals and that. They have made some strides, but they haven't been making nowhere near enough. And the reason why they haven't been making nowhere near enough is because of the austerity that they have imposed. The cutbacks they've imposed. Obviously, Brexit has had an impact as well. COVID has definitely had an impact in terms of costs and everything as well. No, I'm not taking away them or other world factors such as war in Ukraine as well. But that still doesn't mean that we shouldn't be trying to meet our obligations to climate targets. So this is obviously highly embarrassing for the Conservative government, as if the Conservative government haven't been embarrassed enough about things. But it is a lot of food for thought, that is for sure. But let's read what they have to say here. So the government's plans to meet climate targets and green economy has been ruled unlawful by the High Court. The campaigning groups that have brought the case had argued it realised too much on risky technology and glossed over the risk of missing targets. Judge Clive Sheldon upheld 4 out of 5 grounds in the legal challenge. Today, ministers agreed to publish a new report within 12 months to comply with the ruling, but said the overarching plan had not been criticised and will remain government policy. Katie Dacour, lawyer for one of the group's Friends of the Earth, called it an embarrassing defeat for the government and its recklessness and inadequate climate plans. She added, cutting emissions isn't only essential to avert the worst of climate breakdown, it will create long-term jobs and green industries of the future, boost energy security and bring down our bills and end our reliance on costly fossil fuels. Then the Labour Shadow Climate Change Secretary Ed Miliband called it a new low. Now you can't, I'm sorry Labour, you need to kind of shut up in this one, because you guys went back on the £28 billion green energy plan. So you guys need to sit in the corner. Yeah, when you're in government, then we'll talk about your green energy plans. But you guys can't say jack. Yeah, you can't say jack. You really can't. Yeah, after what your U-turn is. I'm just putting that out there. This is the second time that the three groups Friends of the Earth, ClientEarth and Good Law Project have taken the government to court over its climate plans. In July 2022, the High Court ruled in favour that the government's last climate plan, the Net Zero strategy, was unlawful because it didn't explain how targets would be met. That case forced officials to draw up a second version, the Carbon Budget Delivery Plan, the CBDP, which campaigners argued was still a complete pipe dream, and so launched a second legal challenge. It concerns carbon budgets set by government last year in order to meet Britain's target of net zero by 2050. It was published in March 2023 before Prime Minister Rishi Sunak went on to tinker with some climate targets under a new pragmatic approach. The campaign said the second plan relied too much on unproven technologies like those that capture carbon dioxide from factories or power plants that store them underground, known as CCS. While some CCS projects exist and scientists believe they are crucial in combating climate change, they are proven hard to scale up and remain very expensive. The three groups also argued it was unlawful because then Energy Minister Graham Sharps was not told of the risks that policies to reduce emissions that could not be delivered. Graham Sharps, not the sharpest tool in the box, that is for sure. Spokesperson for the government's Energy Security and Net Zero Department said, the UK can be hugely proud of its record on climate change. You just lost a High Court case with regards to climate change. Not only are we the first major economy to reach halfway to net zero, we have also set out more details in other G20 countries on how we will reach our ambitious carbon budgets. The claims in this case were largely about process, and the judgment contains no criticism of the detailed plans that we have in place. We do not believe a court case about our process representing the best way of driving progress toward our shared goals of reaching net zero. It seems like a lot of positive talk saying that they're going to keep going, guys. They're going to keep going, the UK. This government has got it in the bag. Yeah, I'm not buying anything that you guys are saying. We know that there are lobbying firms that are pocketing politicians, both Conservative and Labour, we know they are, who are obviously trying to dumb down these changes as much as possible to slow down the changes of climate action, and it's not good enough. More needs to be done. But again, everyone says the same $1 million question, or say £1 million question. Regan, where are we going to get the money for all this? We're in a cost of living crisis. Yes, of course we are in a cost of living crisis. Yes, among other things that are going on. I understand that. I know everything costs. But also our futures, our children's futures, our children's futures, kind of important. You know, the future of the planet's kind of important. You know, don't know if that may not matter to you, but maybe your children's or your children's children might matter to them if the planet is really, really hot. You know, I'm just going to put that out there. And, you know, we talk a lot about immigration being out of control. It's going to get a lot worse if the temperatures continue to rise as well, because there will be parts of the world will become uninhabitable. And I don't want parts of the world to become completely uninhabitable, because we don't want to be overwhelmed with migrants. So, you know, let's try and do our part here in the UK. Yes, of course, the rest of the world has to do its part. There's no question. We're not talking about the rest of the world. We're talking about here in the UK and what we're doing. Are the Conservatives doing enough? Do you think the Conservative government has been doing enough? Do you think that the incoming Labour government will do enough? Do you think some of these campaign groups are justified in their actions? What do you guys honestly think about all this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, if you found this video informative, please hit the like button. Greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content there as well. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.